Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com. We're glad and thankful to have you here. Today's Thursday, the 27th of June, and we are blessed by the appearance in studio of a special guest. Some of you might know her. Some of you might not. If it's your first time watching her, you should know her. It's Camellia Peterson. What's up, CJ?
Good morning.
Nice to see you today. We're glad to have you in studio.
It's always fun to be in studio. So.
You are fresh from the fields of door knocking, political campaigning 101, knocking on people's doors, bothering them when they're trying to relax.
Right.
Getting them up off of their couches and saying, vote for this candidate because they're good.
They're good.
Well, people who are interested in politics, like most people of interest who are interested in politics, like 80 to 90% of them have never done this, right? So you realize you learn a lot.
Oh, for sure.
From door knocking, don't you?
Yes, for sure. You learn that most people don't realize that we have a primary at all coming up.
Yes.
You don't know who they're, we're 5 weeks out. That's a little bit from the primary. And so little ways, but they usually don't know quite who's running or who they're, haven't done their research yet. But
yes. Steffi is on the chat. She says, nice tan, Camellia. So again, when you're knocking.
I've been getting a lot of sun.
Well, yeah, you get a lot of sun when you're door knocking. Speaking of Suncatcher over there on Rumble Chat, first time I've ever seen you here. Welcome. We always love to see new people. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. What does your shirt say there, Camellia? Can you just show us here real quick? Show the camera. It's got the Care Bears, and it says, abolish income tax. Nice.
I've been wanting to make this shirt for so long, and now thanks to AI, I can do it.
We are a no income tax Wake Up America show. We don't tax you at all, but we do ask you to support this show by giving us some Rumble rants today. If you want to unlock the bonus content, the Wake Up America show produces a mini documentary every day. And today's, Camellia knows what it is. She hasn't seen it yet. It's so good. You don't want to miss it. You can only see it if we raise at least $60 in donations through Rumble or through YouTube, or if you head to ap4libertyshop.com and make a purchase over there, which a lot of people did yesterday. They got themselves some Founding Flavors coffee for the first time. I see many people who have never had it before. You're going to get hooked. It's delicious. Camellia loves it, doesn't she?
So I will tell you, I was thinking as I took the first sip this morning, and I go to a lot of coffee shops. I do a lot of coffee shop meetings. And when I took a sip of this, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so much better than all of that coffee shop coffee.
Yes.
That you paid $3-4 a cup for a cup of black coffee.
I know. I need to start like a Founding Fathers themed storefront.
That would be
See if
cool.
we could do it. Okay. So we're obviously today is debate night. We're all very excited to see Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. And by excited, I mean kind of like. Nobody's excited.
It'll be interesting to see how much they can, prop Biden up.
Yes. Thanks, Matt Unroe. He says, here's a $5 for the X-Zones last night and this morning. Loved it. He's talking about, you missed all of the kerfuffle.
That's what happens when you're knocking doors.
Yeah, well, and you're actually doing something in the streets to fight for liberty instead of talking about it online like me. I mean, the DeSantis people are coming at me like hot and heavy. They're upset with me over the last 48 hours because I pointed out that there's this thing called the political compass.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like a lot of these DeSantis people for the first time ever are seeing it. And these people have been, convinced for, I guess, some time that they were freedom fighters. But then when they looked at where they were in the political compass, they're on the right-wing authoritarian side of things. Yeah. I mean, nobody likes being called an authoritarian, but if your number one thing that you like to do is sue people and ban things,
right,
you're probably an authoritarian. Now, you're not Nazis, you're not Hitler, right? You're not Joseph Stalin or Pol Pot, but you're above the line of authoritarian libertarian on the political compass, and they're upset because I like Vivek Ramaswamy. And Vivek embarrassed DeSantis in the debates. He made him look.
Sure.
And so they're really upset. They're butthurt about it. I've seen this behavior before. 20 years ago, when I was first in politics with the Ron Paul people, we would get very upset when anybody would ever criticize Ron Paul at all for any reason, even if there was oh, he might actually have a good point. It's like, destroy them, right? Yeah. So because these people, the thing is and it's sad to see, is that a lot of these people, their whole personality is tied up in a politician.
Yeah, that is, yeah, don't ever do that.
It's like, they've got the gator in their bio, like, I'm a Ron DeSantis Republican. And it's like, he fought the COVID lockdowns. Yeah, the ones he put in place. Thank you. Good job, Ron. I always love it when Republicans save us from the big government that they pushed on us in the first place, and they get credit for that. They're sure. Thank you for removing the chains that you put around my neck.
Sure. Well, I mean, we should always be able to criticize our politicians,
Sure.
especially the ones we like, because we should be pushing them to be better.
Yes. Dad Bod Baboon, great name, has the right of it and says, I'm a Floridian and I'm very happy with DeSantis, but his fanatics are horrible and only make him look bad. Exactly. DeSantis is much better than, like, I don't know, Gavin Newsom, right? Obviously. Right? Yeah, Ron DeSantis is far better than Kathy Hochul or something like that, but it's kind of like, no, I feel like Missouri actually did a little better than Florida did, even a little bit to an extent. DeSantis kind of sucked all the oxygen out of the room
Sure.
during COVID, but we did pretty damn good here, didn't we?
I think so. I think probably the difference between the two was that Parson was very quiet, laid back, hands off. There was a downside to that in terms of like the very local tyranny that went on in some counties. But for the most part, Missouri was open the whole time and there weren't any, lockdowns other than what local, municipalities or schools did. And I know there were people who wanted to see him do
They wanted
something
him to
about
take
that.
the Ron DeSantis approach.
Sure.
They wanted him to ban all lockdowns in the state, and rather than let the localities make these decisions, Missouri took the more libertarian approach to it, which meant that there's a lot of conservatives who don't like this. They want that top-down unitary approach, but they don't want to show up to their town hall meetings and confront their local politicians. They don't want to do that. They would just want, the governor, just fix it, just have the governor do it, right? Instead of having to actually participate in your local politics. But anyways, Quantum Kitty just donated $50. Oh my God.
Wow.
What's up, Kilsharian? She's easily got the coolest name.
Nice.
So here, we're going to get to the debate stuff. We've got a billion things to talk about. Daniela Pensack joins us at 8:30 a.m. Central Time to talk about what it means to notice things, which sounds banal, perhaps mundane even, if you will, but it's actually much more interesting than you might think. I'm noticing things, right? But then, when Democrats are like, don't believe your lying eyes when you're noticing things,
Yep.
and you seem to continue to notice things, but then the Democrats are like, no. Don't believe what you see. Believe what we tell you. Right. So we're going to talk about that. But real quick. So I posted this, and boy, there are a lot of people triggered by this. I can tell these children would be very upset if they knew how to read. Here is the political compass. Got it pulled up. And I shouldn't have to explain to people this stuff, right? Especially when they have very strong opinions. They're loud and they're stupid and they have big opinions and they're new on the political scene. I get it. This is the first time they've ever seen, many of them, the political compass. Here it is. Everything above this middle line is authoritarian. We have authoritarian left, which up here you've got communism and socialism and all that kind of crap. On the authoritarian right, you've got kakistocracy, and you've got corporate autocracy, and you've got Nazis and imperialism and all that stuff, aristocracy. And then down here, on the bottom right of authoritarian right winger, you've got your neocons and your Zionists and your national conservatives and your paleo conservatives, right? Everything below this line is libertarian, right? So it's a matter of degrees. It's not like it's some, exact pinpoint chart, but it's a pretty good example. Vivek Ramaswamy is down here, right? A national libertarian to a minarchist, right? And Ron DeSantis is up here. He's more national conservative, right? Neoconservative kind of a guy. Fiscal right? Conservative. You were kind of taking umbrage with the whole concept of fiscal conservatism being authoritarian.
Well, yeah, I guess when I think fiscal conservatism, I think really more libertarian in that, I think it's not the government's job to subsidize things. Like if you're fiscally conservative, you want to cut government spending, but you also don't want to be handing out subsidies left and right either.
Well, I think that's, I think there's some confusion there. And that's why fiscal conservatives are just above the libertarian line there. Because they tend to still believe in subsidies, and they probably were for the bailouts, and they still think that lab grown meat might be a little bit too dangerous for people to try. So there's that. But I mean, I think that for the DeSantis people, and again, like DeSantis isn't half bad. I mean, but he's like, again, he's like white Marco Rubio, if you will.
Right.
He's a garden variety
Sure.
authoritarian conservative, and
Right.
that's not a libertarian. That's fine. I know they're all falling all over themselves to tell me like, well, libertarians, they don't accept the governance, blah, blah, blah. And it's kind of like, okay, so you are authoritarians. You do want to ban things that you think are bad because you're afraid of them and terrified and conspiratoried, right? And the crony capitalists, they take advantage of that. Big corporations, like the lab-grown meat ban, like he was there with all the big corporate executives signing that bill to ban lab-grown meat.
Right.
Is we're not going to have any lab-grown meat in our stuff, right, boys? Yeah, we don't want that competition in our state, big government. Help us out, big government. We want to protect our industry. It's like, okay, well, you believe that, and it's because you take advantage of retards who don't understand science and want to prevent technology from advancing because you have an IQ of this, just barely above room temperature.
So, I mean, the thing with DeSantis was during COVID, he went kind of the other way on, like a little too far the other way. Because when you're talking about because he wanted to tell private businesses
Right.
what they could and couldn't
With
do.
vaccines.
Right. And I know we don't like this, and people are all like, oh, corporations, but that's not the government's job. I mean, and when it came to Disney and all of that stuff, he took back the roads,
Well,
and I think they're going to regret it.
Right. Well, like one of the things, like for example, like such Trump, or you never say anything about mega people and stuff like that. Well, I'll say this now, like I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I think that the COVID vaccine, for example, was fake and didn't work for the most part, or at least it was only like 30% effective and not technically a vaccine. But if somebody doesn't want to get a polio vaccine or measles, mumps, or rubella or something like that, and like you have to hire this person. No, I fucking don't. No, I don't. I don't have to hire that person. Well, just because if you want to not get vaccinated and you want to live like the Amish and, get polio and measles and shit, that's your business. That's fine. But I don't have to associate with you, right? It's funny because they're like, the Christians shouldn't have to bake the cake. And then they're like, but hire the plague rat. You shouldn't have to bake the gay wedding cake, but you should have to hire the plague rat.
Right. It was hard, like, so especially during COVID when the medical facilities were requiring all of their staff, the hospitals were requiring nurses and doctors to take the vaccine. And I think there were lots of good reasons not to take it, right?
Absolutely.
Lots of good reasons to be cautious, right? But the thing was that was happening is I wholeheartedly, supported people quitting and walking away, but you're also asking people to make a huge sacrifice when they're supporting their families with that. And the thing is if we want to ask people to do that, we also need to be there to support them, while they find some other way to support their family.
You know that like the average IQ of the Wake Up America show listener is like the higher than normal.
Of course.
Because here's what I'm seeing from like Dad Bod Baboon, for example. He's saying he's actually a nurse, which is interesting, and says, my thing just like reset on me here real quick. Hold on. He says, crap, where did it go? That was such a good comment. Dad Bod Baboon says, oh, I'm a nurse and I understand some vaccines are important, but I also agree people should have a choice. And sorry, but that COVID shit was not a vaccine. Right. And he says, if you have to change the definition of vaccine, yes, agreed. Courtney says most vaccines have been researched for decades and are actually effective. They have eradicated certain illnesses. Yes, exactly. Right. So it's about freedom of choice. But what DeSantis did was to say, no, you don't have freedom of choice.
Right.
You have to associate with people. You don't have freedom of association. You have to hire these people. And it's like, that's right-wing authoritarian. It's not Nazi, okay? I'm not saying he's a Nazi. I'm saying that it's right-wing authoritarian. It's north on the Nolan chart, or it's north on the political compass. And fine, that's okay. So you guys are not libertarians. Why do you think I prefer Vivek Ramaswamy? They're like, what, I'm so disappointed in you, Austin. I see all these tweets. Austin's such a grifter for supporting libertarians over authoritarian conservatives. Like, are you retarded? I mean, you're a grifter because you support libertarians over authoritarians. Okay.
I mean, I don't know what it takes to convince those people. I listened to, when he was campaigning, I listened to some of the town halls that Ramaswamy did. And it just like there's no way around it. It was impressive. And
Yeah.
not just his intellectual knowledge, but also his ability to engage people in conversation who vehemently disagreed with him and to bring them to a point of finding some like he did a great job of de-escalating people
Yeah.
who hated him.
Absolutely. And, did he have problems? Sure, absolutely. Nobody's a perfect
Right.
libertarian except for me, obviously. And
Clearly.
but right, but anyways, we want to talk about the debates anyways. But speaking of debates, it was just funny because somebody posted that video of Vivek Ramaswamy raising his hand to answer, and DeSantis like looks at him and then raises his hand halfway. You know what I mean? Little trepidatious. Anyways, if this is the first time you've ever seen the political chart, you can take the test. They call it the Nolan chart, but it's
Yes.
actually expanded from what it used to be like in the 80s and 90s. But it's the political compass test. You can take it, find out where you're at. Everything north of the line is authoritarian. Everything south of the line is libertarian. There's left libertarian, right libertarian, and find out where you're at. And if you're an authoritarian conservative, just own it. Like you're like, okay, the purpose of government is to punish my enemies. And that's what you believe, and you're a DeSantis type, that's fine. You believe that. Again, he's not a Nazi. He's better than Gavin Newsom, and I'd vote for him over like a leftist or Democrat any day in a heartbeat. But I'll always prefer a limited government libertarian to a big government Republican conservative authoritarian. And that's fine. Okay, good. All right, let's talk about that. Where does Donald Trump fall on the political chart? A lot of people ask. There's actually the general capitalist.
Uh-huh.
But the general capitalist is on the libertarian side of things.
Well, I mean, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, not to like beat up on DeSantis or anything, but DeSantis and his people did run against Trump's libertarian accomplishments. Like that was their presidential campaign ran against the First Step Act.
Yes.
Remember?
Right. Yeah.
So in that sense, and Donald Trump's comments about immigration the other day, much more libertarian than conservative authoritarian.
Sure. And I think, and I think this is the thing that people need to remember too, is like you are probably going to fit on that scale somewhere if you have a strong ideological bent. And there are some people who just aren't, they don't have a strong ideological foundation. And I honestly, I think Trump is one of those people that's not his baseline. He is likely to, I mean, does he know his own mind? I would say so, but I think his bottom line is a little more ego driven than ideologically.
Yeah. Andy Opperman, boy, the comments are just brilliant today. Andy Opperman says the most frustrating thing about being a Vivek supporter is dealing with people who say he doesn't mean what he says. Yeah, well, your guy isn't even saying it, ass hats. Very good. Yes, thank you.
It's kind of the same argument for people who are now bashing Reagan.
Yes.
Because of some of the things that he did, even though, I mean, you have to take things in the context of their time. And the words that we say on the national stage are incredibly important.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. They matter, and they should say that. Bill Maher is making his prediction for who he thinks is going to win the debate tonight. Take a listen.
I mean, part of it, the left has to own. They are aggressively anti-common sense. The Democrats keep running on this one idea, saying to the American people, you can't possibly think you can do worse than Donald Trump. And they keep saying, yes, we can. Yeah. Yes, we can. And I understand that. I do. I would never vote for Donald Trump. And as I said, I think the Republicans are worse. But yeah, when it's funny, when I talk to my friends around my age, 40, and they are always bitching to me about their kids who are like in their 20s, and they're like super uber woke, and they're driving their parents crazy. And everything is like, you don't get it, Mom. That's old thinking. And I'm like, don't get what? Abolish the police? Tear down statues of Lincoln? Maybe give communism another shot? Get rid of the border patrol? Get rid of capitalism? White supremacy has never been worse? Gender is always just a social construct. It's okay to have penises in the women's swimming pool in women's prisons. Okay. No, it's not that I'm old. Damn. It's that your ideas are stupid.
And then he went on to predict that he thinks that Donald Trump's going to win tonight because the Democrats are allergic to common sense. Your thoughts, Camelia?
Well, sure. I think there's no doubt about it. I think that Trump speaks to the things that people want to hear about. And that's why populism works. because, you know, he knows what's important to people right now and the things that are hurting people in a very real way in their day-to-day lives. And I think that, you know, the Biden has been trying to gaslight us this whole time and telling us, oh, the economy's great, you know, unemployment is great.
Right. And later we're going to talk about all the Hooters locations that have been closing. Biden's shrinking Hooters.
Small too, right?
Yes. We've got Hooters shrinking across the country thanks to Bidenomics. Hey, man, if you're on socialism or communism, there's no way that you could have enough food to make boobs that big, you know? So it's... anyways, Donald Trump shared a video on his Truth Social account of him and Joe Biden climbing the stairs to Air Force One. Here go the presidents. On the right, you see Donald Trump ascending the stairs. On the left, Joe Biden falling the stairs. 1 fall, 2 falls, 3 falls. Rushing himself off. Trying to make it up the last flight. Hold on tight. Posting, I think that Donald Trump, God, he's if he was not a politician, he would be a great stand-up comedian.
I mean, he's had his own TV show.
I know. And he was funny. He was funny. He was actually funny. But I just love seeing this because it really is encompassing what we're all looking at tonight, which is to see if Joe Biden actually can stand up to Donald Trump and has the wherewithal and the cognizance to be able to lead this country for the next 4 years. And I mean,
and what do they give him to do that, right? Because there's so many examples out there of how he's not capable, like on the international stage, right? He's confused. He says weird things. He has to be led around. Like, I don't know what other evidence people need.
yeah.
That's not normal.
Yeah, the thing is the question about whether or not he's on drugs or not on drugs, I think, it's immaterial because we're not going to find that out at the end of the day, like unless there's some WikiLeaks, unless Julian Assange gets back to work, which would be amazing. I don't know if he will, but we saw his State of the Union, for example, and he did a good job. Like Biden actually, not because I think he got heckled and he actually fired back at them with some good zingers. So he's still got a little bit of the, what do you call it, piss and vinegar in him. You know what I'm saying? A little piss and vinegar.
Of course, there was speculation about what type of drug they might have given him, right? And if the side effect of that was that it makes you angry because he was angry and shouting the whole time.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. It's nice to see 339 people joining us live today over on Rumble. Hi, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Austin Peterson, and I'm hanging out here on set with my good buddy, Camelia Peterson. We are not related, but we look like we could be brother and sister. We both got that Nordic, Aryan, very Groiper-friendly kind of tone.
Well, the Swedes.
The Swedes and the Danes. Yeah, he's very good. And if you're enjoying the show this morning, make sure that you click the like button on the feed. And just FYI, the Wake Up America show is a 5-day-a-week, 2-hour live stream. This is my full-time job, and I'm loving it. Just grifting here, grifting there, grifting everywhere. Just kidding. We did unlock the bonus content thanks to the generous donations. So, guys, you will get to see that mini documentary. We'll take a break here in 30 minutes. And I'll play it for you so you guys can see. This week's theme for our mini documentaries is lesser known wars that helped shape the American Republic. And today's is my favorite, especially because I use it to dunk on Dave Smith and Clint Russell when I was debating them back in the day when it came to foreign policy and the American relationship with the Muslim world.
Mm-hmm.
So if you already know what the documentary is, you can make a little guess over there in the Rumble chat. That was my hint. Courtney Conover made a generous donation. Says Camelia is the best, and I want her own show. I does exactly.
Thank you, Courtney.
Cecilia, who just tuned in now, 431 people joining us live. She says, what does Camelia's shirt say? Also, her own show would be cool. Thank you. Yes, so show off your shirt, Camelia.
I can't see myself on the screen. So
Stand up a little bit. Hold on. Move this out of the way.
Sorry.
Right there. It says, what does it say? Abolish income tax. Yes. I'm going to make that shirt and put it in the store.
Well, so what I don't know is,
we're just going to make our own bears.
I was going to say, I don't even know really how close this is to the original Care Bears.
It's probably too close.
And what they probably can't see is like the blue bear has the IRS
logo
on it and the American flag in the middle, and then like money on the green one.
Rainbow, which is LGBT, and then the suckers back there, which is MAPS.
Oh. No.
Well, it is a children's show. If you're enjoying the Wake Up America show, come back and join us for our regular schedule, 5 days a week. We have so much fun here, and we are always making friends. With 461 people going live, that must mean that Rumble probably put us on the front page, I'm guessing. So if so, thank you to our friends Siraj Hashmi and Dylan Abad and the Chris Pavlovsky over at Rumble. They've just been huge in helping us over the last year. When we got suppressed and lost our monetization from YouTube last year, Rumble actually reached out to me and said, hey, Austin, we want to help to support your show. And they have been just doing more than almost anybody to help support the Wake Up America show. But people like Camelia, of course, have been here since the beginning. She donates $17.76 a month to the Wake Up America show. Many other people, too, have stepped in and been monthly supporters for the show, and we appreciate all of our monthly supporters. So definitely check us out. And if you like us, we'd love it if you'd be a regular viewer. Clementine says, simps for Camelia. Because I know she'll hate that.
This is a no simping zone.
No simp zone. No simp zone. Femme Constitutionalist is here with us today, as well as Barney Styles. Nice to see you guys. Don't forget to click that follow button. We'd be glad to have you be a regular guest. Okay, so we're talking about the debates tonight. I think I have one more or two more clips to go. Oh, Elon Musk announced that he's not going to take down streams, even though CNN has asked. What do you think?
That's awesome. I mean, it just like, you remember at the beginning when he first took over Twitter, and I refuse to call it X still.
Yeah.
But you know how people were like, oh, he's just, he's not going to make a go of this. And they were really critical of him. And a lot of conservatives were too. Like, they liked him for a while, but anytime somebody gets banned, they like turn on him.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a rash of like small account bans here lately. I think glitches just happen sometimes, but over and over, he has demonstrated the willingness to like stand athwart history, yelling stop, and, doing the right thing. And what a time to be alive.
Yeah. I saw that Tim Pool had said they're still going to stream because YouTube has said that they will take down.
Of course.
Yeah, exactly. So here's what Tim Pool had to say about it the other day. Take a listen.
I received a message from YouTube last week asking to hop on a phone call to discuss the RNC and the presidential cycle. And I said, sure. I briefly spoke with some individuals at YouTube earlier today who made it clear that CNN reached out and is expressing concern. I don't know the full extent, but making it known that YouTube better contact their news programs over the CNN debate. Now, of course, like all presidential debates, which is the epitome of civic responsibility, it is of civic participation, we will provide live commentary and fact-checking on this presidential debate, as we have done for every other, so long as this show has been around.
He's brave because, I'm sure that the majority of his revenue these days does come from YouTube, but,
he's also always been really careful, hasn't he, too,
extremely.
About not getting strikes on YouTube. So that's a big deal for him.
It is, there's a lot of danger involved these days, but I'm the first one to say, like, get hands off of my corporations, government, get your government hands off of my business. But I will say that I do think that a presidential debate, even though it is on a private company's network, CNN, I do think that the public interest supersedes the private, like, corporation contract here, essentially, that if you are going to host our government's presidential debates and you're the only person or the only place where you can see it, you can't monopolize that. Like, we need access to that information in real time. We should be able to react to that, have a conversation about that in real time. Otherwise, like, it needs to be just be on C-SPAN, and that's it. And everybody needs to be able to do it, and it's in the public domain. Otherwise, don't put it on CNN or MSNBC or Fox or any of this stuff. It needs to be on C-SPAN.
So I do wonder why they don't just do debates on C-SPAN and then allow the other networks to stream it. Like, why do they do it this way, where just one network, has the proprietary rights to it?
Yeah, I mean, like, our debates in this country have always had an element of corruption to them to an extent. So it's like the whole idea that these debates are controlled by these networks, I think, is a problem, because they're the ones who set the debate criteria. And listen, I've been in third-party politics like the first 10 years of my political career, and it's obviously extremely corrupt how they determine who gets in the debates. There will be times when somebody might actually qualify, and they just won't put them on there, right? They'll just say no. And, listen, I mean, Trump and Biden, they have freedom of association to some extent, right? In the sense that, they don't want to get up on stage with somebody. You can't really force them to do that, right? Because I think Biden or Trump said that they wouldn't be debating if there was RFK on the ballot.
Biden, I think, yeah.
Yeah. So the fact is that that there's a lot of factors at play here. But if CNN gets access to do the presidential debates between two candidates for public office, we should be able to broadcast it if we're following what I would consider to be fair use. And fair use means that you're not just... I can understand if CNN doesn't want you to just be able to just stream the debate on your channel without any editing or commentary or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you're adding commentary and you're like making cuts and you're cutting away from it and you're talking and you're going to guests, that to me is fair use, because it's like you can take a famous painting or a photograph or a work of art, and even if it has a copyright attached to it, if you fundamentally alter that work of art to make it something completely new, that is considered to be fair use.
Right.
Like, I could take a famous picture of Elvis, do a big pink paint across it, right? Multiply it, duplicate it, do what Andy Warhol did with like pictures of Marilyn Monroe, Campbell's soup can kind of stuff. And now I have created a work of art. It is derivative, but that is an original work of art. So if CNN broadcasts the presidential debate and we did a reaction show to it, and we were adding commentary and altering it and not playing the whole thing just by itself unaltered, that I think is really where it plays in fair use.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, well, what's going on? How do we have 828 people watching the Wake Up America Show on Rumble? How you doing?
Nice.
It's fun. I love having a big audience because I'm vain. If you're enjoying the show too, don't forget, you got to click that like button. We'd be glad to have you be a regular guest on the show. The Wake Up America show is just tons of fun. We're a motley crew, and we goof around. We talk about politics, news of the day. If you're an early riser and you're watching the show right now, you probably have a job and are a productive member of society, which means you're not a Democrat or a socialist. But even if you are, you're here, welcome, and we will turn you into libertarians soon enough. Just don't be a left libertarian and vote for Chase Oliver, you know what I'm saying?
I always wonder, like, especially when I come in the studio, if it's going to be, what direction the show is going to end up taking, if it's going to be wildly offensive to everybody or...
Normally the show is offensive to like at least like of some percentage. Like, we did offend the DeSantis people earlier. But for the most part, we tend to not offend absolutely everyone, but sometimes we'll offend everyone and then we'll start talking about religion, and then it's just
and then offend everyone.
And then everybody's mad.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing about the people who watch this show. They are quality people with higher IQs, but also because they are not easily offended and they can laugh at themselves and have a sense of humor. And that's really important because you have an intelligent, smart person if they can do that.
Yeah, I've kept my audience smaller by not pandering to the crowds. And there are a lot of people who hate me, and that's fine. But my crew tends to be ride or die. And if you are the type of person who, even if let's say you are strictly religious, right? but you can take a joke. Like if we made a joke about your particular religion, right? If you're a Muslim and we made a joke about Durka Durka Muhammad Jihad, some kind of Islamic bomb, aloha snack bar joke, for example, right? And you didn't decide to come and murder us or put a jihad on our heads, then great, you're in the right place, because we're cool with religious people as long as they can take a joke. We're cool with DeSantis people as long as they're not totally retarded and can take a joke, right? We're cool with MAGA people provided they can take a joke, right? You know?
Yeah, because we criticize Trump too
Yeah, we
sometimes. Like,
do.
it's okay.
It's okay. We can disagree with Donald Trump about things. Like, for example, Donald Trump said something about letting people who are students come to the United States and have a staple a green card to their diploma.
Right.
His MAGA base was mad. And I was like, haha, I kind of like that idea. Like, that's a good idea, right? So, you know, I kind of teased the MAGA people, right? And listen, I'm a Donald Trump delegate. I got elected here in Missouri as a Donald Trump delegate, and right, I'm going to vote for him. But like, it's funny because I'm like, yay, Trump. And then his audience is like, no, boo, right? Like the DeSantis people were like mad at me because they're like, Trump. And I'm like, well, he's more libertarian than your guy is. So yeah, what about Trump? Good morning to Scott Fawn of Missouri Times. Good morning. Good morning. We're glad we have Scott Fawn to help us with the studio. So anyways, so we're happy people here. I think, you know, happy warriors for liberty. We do goof around and sometimes we get mad, but I think, you know, it's funny because being happy, being positive, and being in politics it doesn't sell as well.
No, it doesn't. Outrage sells.
Yeah, it's like,
it's why some of the more difficult contingents of our own side tend to be fairly successful in spreading their negativity because people eat that stuff up. Anything to be mad and outraged.
I think I'd make a lot more money if I was like, death to the New World Order. Stalin took the guns. Jacob took the guns. He took the guns. You're never going to take our guns. 1776 will live again. And trust me, there is like a side of me that like that's in there, you know, but I try to save my outrage.
Two wolves within you.
Right. Exactly. There are two wolves. Thank you, Camilla. Funny. Exactly. But I just like to have fun, you know, and I like to goof around and be happy. And I save my rage for when it really matters. Right. Really matters. So anyways, it's 7:40. And do you know where your children are in the morning? It is 7:40. Flashback to the 2020 debate where Trump had to remind Biden what point that he was on. Take a listen.
Manufacturing went in a hole.
Excuse
number
me,
one.
Chris. Wait.
Number two.
Chris.
Number three.
They said it would take. No, you were number two.
No.
Chris.
Okay, that's funny.
Good stuff, man. I mean, that guy is sharp. That guy is sharp. He's no dummy. Trump is no dummy. He may say some dumb stuff sometimes. Wouldn't we all if we had cameras on us 24 hours a day, though?
I mean, sure. We all say things that people don't like or are cringy or dumb. It's not like none.
I got him on me 2 hours a day, and I say some dumb stuff sometimes here on the Wake Up America show. You know what I'm saying?
That's why when somebody overall, like even with Vivek Ramaswamy, like when somebody overall is doing the right things and saying the right things, but once in a while they say something stupid, like, you know, give them a little latitude. So we all do that.
Yeah. So another letter has emerged this year in this campaign signed by 16 Nobel Prize winning economists who say Trump will crash the economy. And it's funny. They actually had one of these back in 2020. But the supercut here of the White House talking about the letter from Nobel Prize winning economists is here. Take a listen.
Today, 15 recipients of the Nobel Prize in Economics released a letter in support of the president's Build Back Better plan,
including 4 Nobel Prize winners recently highlighted in an open letter.
17 Nobel laureates who have conveyed this will help address inflation.
14 Nobel laureates in economics said it'll actually bring down the cost. It will reduce the deficit, and it will totally paid for, and it's going to reduce inflation. 17 Nobel laureates in economics. 15 Nobel laureates in economics released a letter yesterday 17 Nobel Prize winners in economics
How many?
have said, spontaneously wrote
Yeah.
together. And 14 Nobel laureates in
Spontaneously wrote
economics
together.
wrote to me telling me that it will also diminish the impact of inflation. And I told you about the impact of the 17 Nobel laureates saying it's going to decrease inflation, not increase it. And this is from 15 Nobel laureates in economics. Quote,
15.
because this agenda, the one I'm talking about, mine, 17 Nobel winners of the economics have written a letter just about 3 weeks ago to me affirming that this bill would ease long-term inflationary pressures. 14, I think it was 14, Nobel laureate economists in economics saying this is going to, what I'm proposing, will reduce the inflation.
That's going to be a big subject tonight. I think the inflation is really it, because the White House has worked overtime trying to convince us the economy is better. But for God's sakes, Hooters is going out of business. Red Lobster is going out of business. The restaurant industry, it's harder and harder to hire people. Employees are difficult to find, Camelia. I mean, this is not an easy economy to navigate right now. A lot of people are struggling, and the Biden White House is just like, no, like they're not paying attention. Have you seen like the cost of food?
Yes.
It's insane when you go there and you're like, a bottle of ranch is like $8 sometimes, right?
Yeah, it's not good, especially if you're looking at buying meat.
Yeah.
Just everything. And the thing is like everything is, even if it's not like a huge difference, everything is higher. I mean, even if it's 15, 25% higher,
Mhm.
that adds up a lot. So it hurts.
Yeah, food costs have gone up. It's definitely the kind of concern that people like myself have when you're looking at feeding a baby soon, and Stephanie, just the two of us, like we go through food so fast, and so now we've got a child on the way, and we've got so many more concerns, and it's kind of like, I mean, thank God we got blessed by our employee that we have for our part timer, and he is like over and above and beyond. But I'll tell you what, the talent pool out there for people who are trying to hire it's insane. People just don't show up to work. They don't show up. They're late. That was another story actually that I had in the rundown here is, and this was earlier, was Gen Z employees getting fired over this common work habit from the New York Post. And they were talking about how common it is now for Gen Z to just not show up to work on time. They just don't show up.
Right. That was an interesting article, actually, because it did talk about how they just have this more like, laissez-faire, laid back attitude about when they arrive, but they also probably have a better attitude when it comes to life-work balance. And I think that's a good thing. But it's like that you can take everything too far. And this idea that you don't need to be there on time, and this idea that maybe, the quality of your work is more important than you showing up exactly at 9 a.m. on the dot. Like, okay, maybe there's something to that. But at the same time, there's a lot of positions where people are relying on you to show up at that time. And it's disrespectful to not do that.
Yeah. Did you, real quick, because I do want to talk about it before we move on. Mind Art over in the chat says, so to be on your show, your last name must be Peterson, ? But she spelled it Ian.
Well, no. I mean, well, maybe variations of Peterson.
There's Ian and there's Owen, and ne'er the twain shall meet. But very funny. Courtney Conover says, hey, I was on the show and I'm not a Peterson, not that she's aware of, right?
Yeah,
but
like you never know.
Yes, but I know a few Petersons who would be glad to put a little Peterson in you.
Oh, you do you? Courtney's like, say that again?
We're going to have a lot of fun on the show today because we are a 2-hour show, which means we still got an hour and 15 minutes to go. We just crossed 1,000 viewers over rumble.com. Rumble.
And it is Thirsty Thursday because Danielle is coming up.
And because you're here.
Oh, whatever.
And because you're here. Trust me, they lust for a rare camellia to just dance with her in the hollyhocks in Joplin, Missouri.
Through the meadow.
Yeah, through the meadow. Tiptoe through the tulips with a lovely rare camellia, which is a flower in itself, and makes a pretty damn good wine too. So before we completely get this thing off of the rails, I did want to talk about the Supreme Court decision yesterday, the Murthy versus Missouri case. This was disappointing. There was a lot of confusion about what it meant. This was the social media case where the Biden administration was colluding, and many people in government, not just Biden, were colluding with Facebook and Meta to suppress political views that they claimed were disinformation. Our attorney general was the one in Louisiana, I think, originated it, right? They were the one, Attorney General Andrew Bailey here in Missouri. And
well, it started with Eric Schmidt. He and the Louisiana AG at the time, before he was elected to Congress, had filed the suit. And then, of course, when Andrew Bailey came into the position here in Missouri, he picked that up and continued on with it. So I have seen people comment, that, well, this case should have been so open and shut that whoever was arguing it, must have done a terrible job. And I don't know, but it's disappointing.
Well, so the story is that they didn't have standing. So the plaintiffs, who were the lawyers who brought this case, they went and found the quote unquote victims, but the Supreme Court threw out this case because they didn't have standing, which means they can come back and try it again. I really hope they do. You know who they should have called?
Yeah.
Stephanie.
I know,
wife.
right?
Yeah, Stephanie was listed in on a U.S. senator asking Meta to ban her because she was considered to be an out-of-state troll because she was supporting Maine Senator Eric Brakey, real good libertarian Republican up there, for his race against, he was a state senator running for a U.S. senator against Angus King of Maine. And Stephanie was posting something in support. So he went and the senator, a federal senator, asked Facebook to ban my wife because of her political free speech.
Right. I mean, and I remember all of the Twitter files that they released, how much evidence do you need? Because there was an abundance there of government collusion with social media platforms.
Yeah. So I hope this comes back. I'd like to see them actually find someone with some standing so that they can actually litigate this properly, and we'll see what happens in the future. At this point in time now, everything is coming down to the wire. It's all about the presidential primaries and our local state and Republican primaries. So for in Missouri, I think probably the most high-profile race obviously is the governor's race. And if you're a Missourian, then you probably might be familiar with Jay Ashcroft. Most people know him by name ID. Mike Kehoe really gunning. I was reading an article yesterday by this Jeff Smith guy where he handicapping the race like it's a game of five-card hold'em.
Yep.
And he seems to think Kehoe right now is kind of the front runner to some degree, which I would tend to agree.
Yeah, he has the money advantage right now for sure. And I mean, just facts are facts. He's run his campaign really well, and they've been very methodical, and they've been doing it for a long time now, right? But they've just run it really well, and they're all over the state now as far as advertising. So that he has raised in the polls his name ID and percentages that much is, I mean, it's some impressive things. It's still, I think it is Ashcroft's to lose, but I think that, depending on what happens with the third candidate, the next one down, who's quite a bit down, but if he got a lot of money from the trial attorneys this week, a lot of money. And so that kind of puts him in the running to run some ads, so that could, and if he does that, that takes votes away from Ashcroft.
Yeah, I like Ashcroft because I've seen him doing the right thing when he thought nobody else was looking. Right,
absolutely.
I've seen him be a conservative when he could have easily supported tax increases.
Right.
So, for example, we had this local library tax that was kind of popular, and the people in Cole County got really butthurt over it. But it lost. It was this bond to increase taxes to pay for increasing the library here. And we had good friends on both sides of the issue here locally. And I'm going to vote against the tax increase when I show up.
Right.
And Jay Ashcroft could have gone out there and done what a lot of conservatives do and say, well, it's a local tax and it should all be local government and stuff. But I'm against the federal taxes, but I'm okay with the local taxes. No, he just quietly showed up to the Cole County, voting register and voted against it. I'm just kind of like, That's what I want to see. And he's running for governor.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of funny because he just like lives down the street, and it's like, Ryan Estes was like laughing because like his kids like will run around over there, and they're like they didn't know that Jay Ashcroft just lived like on their block, and it was like he showed up and he wasn't like in his underwear or something like that, but like Jay Ashcroft was like in his pajamas, and he's like, oh hi, how's it going? Just a normal dude.
He's a real person.
Oh, dude. Yeah, exactly.
That is what I like about him. And he has the right principles. But I don't, I know to like a lot of people, they want the smooth talking fighter who's going to yell and scream. Like, that doesn't impress me. Show me what you can do. Show me that you're going to show up and that you are going to stay till the very last person is done talking to you because they're important to you and you show them that. Anyway, so yeah, I'm hoping that will be the outcome.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. So the Mike Kehoe triggers me because he was supportive of the gas tax increase.
Yeah.
Right. So they call him Tax Hike Mike. So that is kind of like, right. Like it just kind of like makes the hairs on my back when neck stand up. But you say he's good on school choice.
Mm-hmm, he is. Yeah. I would say, yeah, he and Ashcroft both are good on the education issue. Although I will say that Ashcroft, more than anyone else, has made it a key point in his campaign that it is a parents' rights issue and that parents need to be in control of their children's education. So I think that's really important to me. And I am glad that he does highlight that. But yeah, and I mean. And when we talked about the fiscal conservatism, like that's how, like I would say that Kehoe is not as fiscally conservative, and it's because I know that he's okay with those tax increases, and he's okay
but that's what conservatives are. I mean, I think conservatives are kind of bipolar these days, right? And it's like when we talk about what does it mean to be a conservative, like many of them, like to be a conservative in practice versus theory,
right,
is to be for infrastructure taxes and voting for like the Missouri Chamber of Commerce is supporting Lincoln Huff here for lieutenant governor. It's because they want to ensure that subsidies are going to the right industries.
Tax credits,
that is fiscal conservatism, not as it is in theory, but in practice, that is how conservatives govern.
Well, the thing is that's why, Missouri is great in so many ways, but this is a problem. This is a big problem that we have in our state because conservatives do love the subsidies and the tax credits. And they're like in the entertainment tax credits, they're like, oh, how much business this is going to bring. Oh, or the Boeing tax credit, where they give them these special advantages, but then they never follow through. Like the companies that get those credits never follow through and actually do the ROI is terrible on it. And it's cronyism. Like it gets given to very specific, corporations.
Yeah.
And like it's favoritism.
Well, yeah, it's like, again, hate to beat up on DeSantis again, but it's like that lab grown meat ban, right? So it's like he's pretending to be fighting for the people, but he's really just taking taxpayer dollars and government authority to protect industry, right? He's using protection and cronyism. And because a lot of these people pay for their campaigns, right? So, and that is the difference between what a fiscal conservative is and a fiscal libertarian is.
So this is the things that conservatives do on that end, like that are giving those tax credits. This is no different than the Biden administration trying to force electric vehicles on everybody because it's not letting the free market work and it's not letting, because we will get electric vehicles in the time that it's right to do so when the technology is developed to where it needs to be and to where it makes sense and it can be done feasibly. Now, like it can't be, like Elon is doing more for that and the government is like saying, oh, we're going to put all these $1 billion into doing all these charging stations. And they've done what, like 3?
Well, and then you've got Bill Eigel, who, when I first met Bill Eigel, and I think pretty sure, could be wrong, I think Bill Eigel supported me for my 2018 U.S. Senate run.
I wouldn't be surprised.
He was because he was really kind of a liberty guy there for a while, but he's changed a lot in like the last few years, and I think it has a lot to do with who his supporters are. And I mean, like some of them are very fine people, and many of them here locally, and I know them, and
sure.
They're wearing their Eigel hats and stuff, and I can understand why some people support Bill Eigel versus Jay Ashcroft, like, and I understand when people are like, oh, Jay Ashcroft's a political dynasty, we need fresh blood, like there are good arguments there. But Bill Eigel has, I think, alienated so many people that he needs to govern effectively as governor. I think that's a real mark against him because, and listen, as somebody who, when I was a Ron Paul, we alienated everybody, right? We made enemies as many, everybody was a target for us, right? It was not about building bridges. It was about burning everyone that we had.
But Ron Paul did not necessarily do that, would you say?
Yeah, he did actually because of how, I mean, he was definitely much more diplomatic than his supporters were.
Right.
But I would say that, you know, you called them psychopathic authoritarians to their face, and, you know, it's kind of true.
All right.
That. 'Cause, yeah, his Ron Paul's exit speech from Congress, he called them all psychopathic authoritarians.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, you know, if you're going to go out like that, I mean, that's okay. But,
Sure.
but the thing is with Bill Eigel is that it's not like he's like Ron Paul. He's become more authoritarian, right? Bill Eigel has become authoritarian because I think that he thinks that that plays well with his base. The China stuff, which when you talk about Chinese farmland being owned, and they're fighting this fight all over the country.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
When you talk about Chinese farmland being owned, that's a very complicated subject. And I could understand if you were like, okay, China, right? They definitely deserve to be punished for what they did in COVID-19, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
But Bill Eigel takes it and says Japan can't
Like
own
across the
anything.
board,
Germany can't buy. It's like, are you trying to kill our economy here? Like,
Right.
like international trade. Hitachi has their plant right across there. Nope, shut it down. They got to sell it. They got to sell it. It's that whole ban TikTok stuff, which comes out of, I think there's a lot of superstition, you know, on the
Sure.
right. There's a lot of superstition on the right. There's a lot of what I call gree mysticism, right? And it's not a policy base, right? Which is,
I think is when people look, or they're looking for explanations and solutions to things that feel too big for them to control,
mhm.
right? And there's always that boogeyman out there there's got to be somebody to target to do that. And are there reasonable things that can be done as far as the whole TikTok and China issue? Of course, like there have been some reasonable things proposed, but that's not what gets attention.
Exactly. So real quick, I do want to say, do a quick read here for our friends over at Rumble who hooked us up with a big audience today. Thank you. I want to make sure that you download the Rumble app. Once you download it, search for my channel. It's AP for Liberty, and follow my channel directly on the app. And here's why. That's going to make sure that you get a notification every time that we go live. So you can click the link in the description on the channel right now, or pinned in the live chat. You should see a QR code over there on the left, where if you're watching us on TV or on a computer, take a picture of that QR code so that you can download the Rumble app on your phone. It's free, but if you prefer to watch the Wake Up America show on the big screen, it's also available for Apple TV, Android TV, Fire TV, Roku, LG, Samsung TVs. All you got to do is search for Rumble, then follow AP for Liberty. Thank you so much to rumble.com, especially for these live reads, because you're helping to grow the ideas of economic freedom and personal liberty by financing the show, supporting us, and putting us on the front page. I'm pretty sure that Chris Pavlovsky is getting a Christmas card from the Petersons this year, as well as Suraj Hashmi and Dylan Abad and all of our friends at Rumble down there in Sarasota, Florida. We love you guys. Thank you. So they record those commercials. So when I'm in the back end, whenever I do a live read for Rumble like that, they like start recording. So I have to like click accept and start. So that's why I like was talking to him directly, because I imagine there's somebody backstage there today who's going to be like, did Austin actually do his live read before we ping him? Right. And then they're going to be like, and if it's Dylan or if it's Siraj or, you know, somebody like that, then I hope that they heard it. So thank you to rumble.com. We appreciate you very much. Okay. It be 8 o'clock, man. We're going to take a little break. Before we do, we are grifters, huge grifters. And we have this thing that we like to call the Grift Shop. Yeah. So while you're enjoying the incredible bonus content, the mini documentary that you all paid to unlock, thank you.
Did anybody make any guesses as to what they thought it was?
I didn't see, so maybe. But it is coming soon. I would like to remind you all that the Grift Shop is packed full of incredible 4th of July products. Some of them can still get there by the 4th of July. One of our most popular items is our America Spilling Tea Since 1776 shirt. We also have cute little ice cream earrings, Rosie the Riveter earrings, our Betsy Ross flag women's high top sneakers. They sell very well. We've also got Don't Tread on Me outdoor mats. If you're feeling a little bit sexy, you might try the sweet Land of Liberty string bikini. Would you wear the string bikini, Camellia?
Probably not.
How much would it cost?
Not for sale.
Not for sale. Okay. Well, the Americana rollable visor. I mean, Rosie the Riveter earrings. The thing about our shop is that it's not your typical angry libertarian like merchandise. Like, I'm going to kill every Democrat I see. It's more or less like fun, silly, kind of fun liberty stuff.
Yes.
So the women tend to like that. This is my favorite in the 4th of July collection. The shirt that shows the fireworks and says, "I'm just here to bang." So check out the Grift Shop, guys. We're going to a brief little break, but it's not commercials. You get to enjoy the bonus content, the mini documentary of the lesser-known wars that helped build the American Republic. We'll be right back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com. Stick around. In the 17th and 18th century, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're listening and watching the Wake Up America show. We're glad and thankful to have you here. It's a very special day because in studio is the lovely Camellia Peterson, who says restaurant service has gone down, the prices have gone up.
Yes.
Hey, you go a lot of Stephanie and I were talking about this like a couple months ago. It's kind of an ongoing thing because we cook a lot at home. Is she's like, God, we make much better food here at home than we get out at restaurants.
Oh, for sure.
It didn't used to be like that. You know, maybe our skills have improved, of course, as we've gotten older, but it does really feel like when you go out to restaurants that you do not get good quality food.
Well, particularly if it's a chain, right?
Mhm.
And I almost kind of wonder if this is not part of a larger trend because, you know, we talked not too long ago about the whole Cracker Barrel, you know,
Mhm.
rebranding thing because they're struggling. And these are all, you know, they're restaurants that have been around a long time, and frankly, they're getting kind of outdated. And I think people's tastes are changing. You see a lot more niche restaurants,
Mhm.
different, you know, styles, types of food. And I think like the normal, just like American fare, like everywhere you go now, if there's a restaurant and they serve American food, what they call American food, it's like, you know, creative American food, or, you know, there's some sort of other adjective with it that makes it a little different.
Well, it's like, you know, I love seafood and it's really hard to get good seafood, obviously, in the Midwest, right? But here's the thing. If I order scallops, I know I'm going to be okay if I go to a Japanese restaurant because like fresh fish and all that stuff is kind of what they do. So if I want seafood, I'll go to a Japanese restaurant now. But if you go to an Italian restaurant and they're offering like clam linguine or like or scallops linguine or something like that, like you expect like at an Italian restaurant, they're serving that kind of a seafood dish, like you should serve me fresh scallops or fresh clams. And I really get the impression that like in these watery sauces that you're getting, that they're putting like canned clams, like tinned cans or tinned fish in some of these dishes and stuff, but they're charging you more than ever.
Right.
And the quality has gone way down. I mean, it's like even like cheeseburgers are not like so hot. Some of the chains, like these smash burger chains, where it's kind of like the new trend and stuff like that. It's so greasy as to be like, okay, this is actually kind of disgusting. It's too much grease. It's like the bun falls apart. It's just, there's not a lot of good reasons to go out to eat. They can't get good employees. That's another
Right.
problem.
Right.
And the circling back to the Hooters question here, where are you going to find pretty girls that don't weigh 350 pounds and are covered in tattoos, Camellia? Where do these women exist? Right?
Right.
There's like if there is a hot girl, it's usually
Well-
like the conservative girl who says the N-word and then she's, you know, and that's all you get, right? If you're lucky.
Here's the thing too, though. Don't you think maybe Hooters is having a hard time hiring because those girls have gone to OnlyFans?
Some of it, yeah, part of it, right? But also, hot girls probably have gone to OnlyFans and stuff. But it's kind of like if you don't want to debase yourself so entirely, if sexuality is your play, is your game, right? I mean, I'm sure a lot of the Hooters girls, even the fat ones, are on OnlyFans, for example. But I mean, we have gotten fatter as a nation, and we sort of like. I know that my audience is going to like recoil when you hear this because I know this doesn't apply to you. But society, we revile beautiful people now. We lionize fat, ugly, tattooed, old, weird, green hair,
Sure.
all this stuff for what we put out there. So like when you go to a Hooters, for example, I'm sure that they're having trouble recruiting because I can't remember the last time I went to Hooters. Maybe like in Florida 10 years ago or 15 years ago, I might have gone to one. But by that time, they were all chunky, man, chunky. But when I was a kid in the 80s, and I used to see like Hooters commercials before to join us here in about 10, 15 minutes to talk about noticing. She's a professional noticer. I've got a really great clip here of Tucker Carlson, of all people, Camelia. I'm going to play this real quick. I'd love to get people's reaction to this. This is him getting confronted by a journalist at a speech he gave in Australia. Take a listen.
Address today. So you talked a little bit about immigration, and in the past you've talked about how white Australians, Americans, Europeans are being replaced by non-white immigrants in what is often referred to as the Great Replacement theory. This is the same.
Have I said that whites are being replaced?
Well,
I don't think I said that.
well, it's been mentioned on your show 4,000 times, and
Really, when did I say that?
4,000 times?
on your
I
show
said
on
whites
Fox.
are being replaced?
You have said that before.
Really?
Yeah.
I would challenge you to cite that because I'm pretty sure I haven't said that. I said
I mean-
native-born Americans are being replaced, including blacks.
Native-born Americans.
Native-born Americans.
And
Americans who, like black Americans, have been African Americans, have been in the United States for, in many cases, their families over 400 years. And their concerns are every bit as real and valid and alive to me as the concerns of white people whose families have been there 400 years. So I've never said that whites are being replaced. Not one time. And
I
you can't
believe
cite
that's
it.
untrue.
So we just met, but when our relationship starts with a lie, it makes it tough to be friends. So
Well,
let's,
I mean, you've been lying
let's
about
pull
my
that back.
press
I'm
gallery
happy to
colleagues
explain
all
what I
morning
do
as well,
think.
so,
Well, you actually can't say it because I didn't say it, and I don't believe it. And I'm telling you that to your face, so why don't you just accept me at face value? My concern...
Your thoughts?
Good
That's your first
for-
time seeing that clip, huh?
Yes, like good for him.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're going to say something and they're going to refute it, be ready to back it up.
Mm-hmm.
And I can understand, like, so I've seen enough people say things that, I know why she thinks that, right? Because that's kind of been when people have been talking about Tucker Carlson
Mhm.
and the things that he's been saying there, you see this great replacement theory referenced a lot. And, in most people's minds, like great replacement theory means white replacement theory,
Right.
right? So, I'm sure she feels very certain about that.
Right. Well, I don't know if she does feel certain about it because she said, you've talked about it on your show 4,000 times.
Well, and did she say you've talked? She just said it's been talked about on your show. Like, so if she's lumping in all of the guests that he's had and saying
Right.
that like he's agreeing with that because other people said that, that's problematic.
Yes. So, here's the thing. I mean, she's a reporter. He's asking for a citation. She can't give it to him, right? So she said, the way that she sounded, it's so funny how anybody can be a journalist.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And so when you hear somebody, they often will sound, people really give a lot of credence to journalists because they will look very serious
Right.
and sound very serious. But this journalist was out of her element. She was not prepared. And so when she came up and she got this, I'm going to watch it again because I think it's so good. Let's listen to it again here.
So much for your address today. So you talked a little bit about immigration, and in the past you've talked about how white Australians, Americans, Europeans are being replaced.
Right, Australians, Americans, Europeans. So it sounds like she's got some source there, right? She's reading off of something. Maybe she wrote it down herself, but the way she's saying that makes it sound like she's reading off of something, which you would think would include a source, like to a quote. Like if I was going to confront somebody, I would have a direct quote, like a citation ready to go. This is what you said. What did you mean by that? You know what I mean?
Right.
But she's like, she's
by
not ready for
non-white
this.
immigrants in what is often referred to as the Great Replacement theory. This is the same.
Have I said that whites are being replaced?
Well,
I don't think I said that.
well, it's been mentioned on your show 4,000 times, and
Really, when did I say that?
on your
I said
show on
whites
Fox?
are being replaced?
You have said that before.
So good.
Yeah.
I
You have said that before. Okay,
would
prove it.
challenge you to cite that because I'm pretty sure I haven't said that. I said
I mean-
native-born Americans are being replaced, including blacks.
Native-born Americans.
Native-born Americans.
Yeah.
And
Americans who, like black Americans, have been African Americans, have been in the United States for, in many cases, their families over 400 years. And their concerns are every bit as real and valid and alive to me as the concerns of white people whose families have been there 400 years. So I've never said that whites are being replaced. Not one time. And
I
you can't
believe
cite
that's
it.
untrue.
So we just met.
You believe
but
it's
when our
untrue?
relationship starts with a lie, it makes it tough to be friends. So
Well,
let's,
I mean, you've been
let's
lying
pull
about
that back. I'm
my
happy to
colleagues all
explain what I
morning as
do
well,
think.
So.
Well, you actually can't say it because I didn't say it, and I don't believe it, and I'm telling you that to your face, so why don't you just accept me at face value? My concern is that the people who are born in the country are the main responsibility of its leaders. And as noted earlier, when those leaders shift their concern from the people whose responsibility it is to take care of to people around the world to put their priorities above that of their own citizens, that's immoral. And they are being replaced in my country, people who are born in the United States, and the birth rate tells the whole story. They are not at replacement rate. And so the U.S. population is growing because we're importing people from other countries. And my view is that happy people have children, and a functioning economy allows them to do that. And we don't have that. And so you need to fix the economy and fix the culture and make it so that people who want to have kids can.
That's good stuff, man. That's really good. I like that.
He's wrong about the answer, the solution is to the birth rate. But
What do you mean?
I mean, he basically just said there that if the economy was better and people were happier, that they would have more children. I don't really think that that's the case.
Actually, I do. I think that if the economy were better, I do think that we would increase our birth rates. Absolutely.
Maybe, but I also think that because we're just in a time where people have so many more options that they can put off having children longer. And, we are no longer culturally in a like legacy mindset of, leaving our own legacy through family and through children. The focus culturally just really isn't there anymore. I don't know. It's a complicated issue.
It's curious. Well, Tucker actually interviewed a gentleman who Daniela Pensack wants to talk about, who wrote a book about the art of noticing. And we're going to talk to Daniela Pensack about that. Are you thirsty? Have a drink of delicious Daniela when we get back on the Wake Up America show.
Maybe not literally.
WakeUpAmericaShow.com.
Rights. Unfortunately, the freed slaves.
Welcome back to the Wake Up America show. Thanks for sticking around. Hope you enjoy that mini documentary today that everybody unlocked. That sweet, sweet bonus content. The history of the Barbary Wars, an American conflict in the Middle East, which is going all the way back to George Washington. So people are like, America and the Muslim world, America out of the Muslim world. And it's like, we've been there for a very long time. Speaking of being here for a very long time, Camille has been here the whole show. Good morning, CJ. How you doing?
Good.
Not going back all the way to the Barbary Wars or anything. You're not that old.
No, I'm not that old. I may be old, but I'm not that old.
A little older than I am. A little bit older.
We're not talking about that.
No, we're not.
Because we know that age is a social construct.
That's right. We identify as like a 25-year-old girl. Okay, if you do.
You do. I'm like that.
Exactly. That's why I'm so hot and sexy. The Wake Up America show comes to you every Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. So if you get up early and you like to find out what's happening in the world and also have a little fun and maybe a little laugh, we're a total gas. So click that like button and follow the Wake Up America show. Join us for our regular schedule. Drop a comment down on Rumble. Let us know that you're there. We'd like to meet you, make some friends. Okay, Thursday.
They do discuss really uncomfortable topics, I would say, at least for people in, like I said, greater academia. He also writes for Taki's magazine, which is more of a libertarian magazine. But essentially, that's who he is. And the reason why we're talking about him is because he was recently on Tucker Carlson. And Tucker Carlson platformed him not too long ago and discussing these issues. I haven't watched a complete interview, but I did watch part of it. People are adulating Tucker Carlson for platforming Stephen Saylor because Stephen Saylor is basically vilified from every mainstream platform. I do want to say, though, Tucker Carlson is not new to this. Stephen Saylor was platformed by Charlie Kirk, actually, not too long ago, a few months ago. And you're seeing bigger conservative figures platforming people like Saylor now. Charlie Kirk also platformed people like Curtis Yarvin. And for those that don't know, Curtis Yarvin also is a very incendiary figure in the right wing. He discusses like anti-egalitarianism, and he's the founder or the father of the neo-reactionary movement or the Dark Enlightenment, which is a whole other can of worms. But so these people are getting more platformed. It is good, though, because I think it's necessary to have these conversations and not completely ostracize these people from mainstream platforms and conversation.
So if I might summarize here, what we're talking about is a gentleman who's written a book that has that essentially sort of rebukes what the left tries to foist on us, which is to deny our basic instinct to notice trends or patterns that occur. For example, whenever someone knocks over a Rite Aid in Seattle, they might tend to fit a certain demographic or a stereotype. We notice these things, but the Democrats tell us that if we do notice them, well, the one, we shouldn't believe our lying eyes, and then two, that we're racist for noticing. Is that about right?
You could say this, yes. His recent book that is being published, Noticing, it's a series of essays he's written all throughout the duration of his career. He's been a writer since the 1990s, and he submits columns and essays as well. But Stephen Saylor, his thing is that he loves statistics. So a lot of what he says is backed by evidence. He's not just saying these things. Same with Charles Murray, for instance, it's backed by evidence and statistics and research. And so he has written quite a bit about, like I had mentioned, differences between the races and ethnicities, sexes. He has written extensively about immigration as well since the 90s, which is also a big issue, not so much anymore since Trump. But that's essentially the idea, is that he looks to statistics, if you puts a lot of research into his findings. And so he's not just pulling this out of thin air. These are real differences that we are seeing, real behaviors that are we are seeing within greater populations, and he just wants to have a conversation about it, and we can't seem to have those conversations, or we haven't been able to have those conversations for a long time. So that's why it is a big deal, I think, that Tucker or Charlie Kirk are platforming these people.
What are your thoughts, Amelia?
Yeah, no, I think it's that again, we've lost the balance because people feel like that if you talk about these things, that all of a sudden that the right is, and I'm not saying that there's not an element of this, I think it's on both sides, but all of a sudden it's like an acknowledgement of some kind that the right is really, racist or something like that. And it's not. I mean, there are some very real genetic differences, between different ethnicities and between genders. And so but we have gotten to the point of correct speech that we can't acknowledge those.
Yes.
Daniela, when it comes to the whole race and IQ question and all that kind of stuff, I've done some research on that, right? This idea that there are general IQ levels that are regional. They're not necessarily tied to race. They're more tied to region, at least from what I've been able to discern. And that seems to be the fallacy that many of the Groypers engage in, that it's like, oh, well, black people overall are very intelligent, but are very low intelligent. But when I look at it compared to region, well, that might be true if you look at it in a region. But if you go to Europe, for example, the average IQ of Africans is much higher than average. Have you noticed that as well? I mean, there does seem to be a lot of misunderstanding from some of these claims that are made.
Absolutely. And this is a conversation that sociologists and scientists are still debating, whether it's nature versus nurture. But it's absolutely true that when you see over time, like the average intelligence of an African American male in the 80s was much lower than it is today on average. You see this with a lot of populations, that over time it increases due to what I believe is access to technology and information earlier age. It's also tied to region, like you mentioned. It's tied to also upbringing and whether or not you had two parents in the household. So your environment plays a huge role in development of your intelligence. However, we also have research indicating that it's also generational as well. There's been research from the UK, I believe, and I don't remember what year this study was done, but they have made research on lower income households versus higher income households, and how in families where it's a generational trend. And even in lower income households, generationally, the kids will always have lower IQ regardless, even if they're giving the basic amenities that higher income children get throughout a duration of time. So my point being is that there's debate whether lower income household people for generations just generally have lower IQ, and whether that is tied to genetics or not. We don't really know the difference, whether it's 50-50, 70-30, how much does nature versus nurture play into it. Obviously, environment plays a huge role especially in childhood development. We are also seeing evidence to indicate that it is genetic as well. So we just don't know how great the genetic differences play into it versus environmental. But regardless of whether or not you agree with people like Saylor or Charles Murray or whoever, you don't necessarily have to agree with them, but we need to be able to have those conversations. And the fact that we can't or we haven't been for a while, kind of plays into that. And people will start to think, well, maybe they are correct if we can't talk about it, if we bring it into light and actually discuss these issues, which I'm glad we finally are. I think that may dispel some fallacies that are tied to those conceptions, like it's purely genetic, which is not.
It's the lure of the forbidden, right?
I'm sorry?
It's the lure of the forbidden, right?
Yes, exactly. And that's why I think people like Nick Fuentes are getting so popular, because you're seeing like him getting kicked out of events. He was recently kicked out of a Turning Point event last weekend, or 2 weekends ago rather, just for showing up. And that I don't agree with Fuentes at all. I don't agree with the movement, but why is he getting kicked out for just showing up? It kind of makes him look like he's saying something truthful that no one wants to talk about. And that's why his movement is growing, and other, I would say, strange movements as well.
Yeah, well, it's funny too because I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that Candace Owens was speaking at that event, and I'm pretty sure she's kind of on board with the Groyper message. So I mean, there isn't a whole lot of daylight between Candace and Nick these days. So it's like, why is Candace okay to platform, but Nick isn't? I mean,
Well,
have you? Go ahead.
Candace, she's a very interesting case. I mean, she did say the Christ is King thing,
Mhm.
and when that I don't know how much you're familiar with that, Austin, but that
I've
was like
followed
all
it.
over.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think the reason why she is popular with the Groypers now, and I could be wrong because I've not like completely followed it, but I think it's because she did say the Christ is King and has been kicked out of Daily Wire or fired by Daily Wire, and so that kind of brought more legitimacy to her profile for the Groyper movement.
Mhm.
I don't know if I don't know the extent of what she said to the Daily Wire. I know Turning Point, though Turning Point is still platforming her, so she's not completely incendiary. So I don't know the extent of how much she's connected with the Groypers or not. There has been like rumors that she would talk at AFPAC, which AFPAC is like Nick Fuentes' convention, which didn't happen because found, however, that as the older a person gets, the less satisfied they are with being single. Which, shocker, that's when you just want to, settle down, have roots, start a family. So that makes sense. They did find, however, that single women, as they get older, are more content with staying single more than single guys. Guys have greater frequency to want to start relationships the older they get, which makes sense. They probably want to breed more than women do on average. But the study also found that people that score higher in neuroticism or neurotic traits want to be or cannot stay single for as long, which I found interesting because I also believe that Generation Z is one of the most neurotic generations that we have. I recall coming across studies that mentioned that, so I did some extra research into it, and I did find a couple studies from the same region. There was one in the Netherlands I found that said that individuals are scoring in Generation Z and younger generations are highly more neurotic than previous generations, but they also score higher in agreeableness. And Austin, if you know anything about the Big Five personality test, people that score high in neuroticism and agreeableness are very feminine. It's feminine behavior. More women score that way. So what I think is happening actually is that the generation is more feminine these days. And as the initial study in Germany has found, is that women are more satisfied with staying single longer than men are. So maybe this is a feminization of overall culture for Generation Z. At least that's my belief. But essentially, that's kind of what we're facing now. I don't think it's necessarily bad. I mean, I don't think teenagers have to be in relationships. You do have less unwanted pregnancies, less abortions that way. Teenagers are kind of stupid. But on the other hand, this is a bit of an issue with people starting families, and that's also why their fertility rate is so low.
That's really interesting. Some cultural observations. So back in the 80s, we've talked about the differences between 80s movies and TV versus now. I mean, much more openly sexualized.
Mhm.
And then, but if that's not as acceptable now, even
Right.
though I would say there's a lot more of it, but we label it as such
Oh God,
and restrict it as such.
Stephanie and I were watching a 1980s movie the other day, and it had boobs and it had violence,
And it was probably rated
and
PG-13.
And
you
yeah,
know,
it
like,
was like blood and car chases and gunfights and stuff, and then more boobs. And I'm just like, and then they had, I was watching Trading Places the other day, and it had blackface and it had boobs and it had just race jokes. I was like, this stuff was funny, and it
So-
doesn't exist anymore.
Well, and here's the thing too. I can remember when I was a kid, like it was the most annoying thing ever, but literally adults, my family members, uncles, aunts, like when I'm 11 years old, they're like, "Oh, you got a boyfriend?" Like
Right.
that was
They would
like
encourage you, yeah.
right. Like they were always talking about that, which is like my parents were like, stop it. But no, you're right. I've noticed this too. I literally just yesterday somehow came across somebody talking about how that this girl was saying that she's like 21 years old and she's never been kissed, she's never had a boyfriend or whatever, and like she's okay with that. She's content, and she wonders like, it's not that she doesn't ever want to get married or anything, but she's just been fulfilled and happy in her relationships and her family support system and friends. And like,
You
I don't
don't
know.
like men anymore, is what I think it is.
Oh,
I
boy.
think it is that. I think it is that your standards have gotten such to the point to where when you look at men, you find most of us to be ugly. Not like okay, not mid. I think that most women find most men to be very unattractive.
I don't know about
And
that.
I think it has to do with social media, and I think it has to do with the OnlyFans economy to a certain extent, right? That we're and here's why I believe that in part because Hinge, that dating app. Remember we talked about how you could only have 8 matches, and women were freaking out because they weren't using dating apps for dating. They were using it for what?
Validation.
Validation. Yes. So I think you hate us. I get the impression from most women that I meet these days, especially younger women, that they despise
So
us men.
we've gone from the He-Man woman haters clubs to the
Well, I mean, if you look at it from like, you can't understand what it's like to be a man and to have to deal with HR departments that are run by women. You don't know what it's like to have a female boss as a man. It's one thing, yes, female bosses can be bad for females under them as well, but to have to deal with like the cult of the tyrannical vagina, because here's the thing, as a man, how do we fight, right? We fight power on power, but women fight that like they can't fight power on power, so they fight dastardly, backstabbing, conniving, right? Like lying, pushing someone out of the office and stuff like that. It's
they
this
poison their husbands with Mountain Dew and
You saw
glyphosate.
this? Yes. Okay. Tell that story real quick.
All I've seen so far, I haven't dug into it, was this woman here in Missouri was not satisfied or whatever, was not happy with her husband. And so she literally put Roundup, like glyphosate, in his Mountain Dew. And he's like the only one in the household that drinks Mountain Dew. So he wasn't really noticing until like she really put some in there one day and he started feeling ill and he's like started questioning things. And anyway, she is in jail with no bail.
No bail, as she ought to be. But I mean, here's the thing. I think women have always been kind of like, men a little bit sketchy and stuff like that. But there used to be something of like a truce. There was like a ceasefire in the battle of the sexes for some time, where we kind of just like, we said, "Vive la différence," and we kind of just got on with it. But now it seems like there's this gridlock.
Yeah.
That we're engaged in and stuff, and part of it is, of course, on men as well. But I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this, Danielle, before we let you go. Like, do you think most women tend to hate most men or find most of us ugly?
I wouldn't say hate. Naturally, women are more closed off to sexual proclivities. There's a lot of women that, don't get me wrong, women do have sexual agency. We want sex. That's absolutely true. But it's at a much lesser degree, I would say, than men are. Right? You can see this in the animal kingdom. You can see this with humans as well. So naturally, women are going to be more closed off to that. I think it's a natural and unhealthy if a woman is very promiscuous. It doesn't, in my opinion, it's not very natural. Women have a greater tendency towards self-preservation than men do. For obvious reasons. I mean, we don't want to breed as frequently as men do. We are smaller, we're weaker. So over time, and according to how human evolution, how we evolved and developed, I don't think women are have greater proclivity to sex like men do, and so we are very more closed off to that, and that can translate to men who do want connection. That can translate to men like, women are put off and we hate them. But I wouldn't say that's the case. Now, in today's culture and society, Austin, to refer to your point, I think it can translate that way now because culture is becoming far more feminized. We make the exception the rule now. And so we kind of and you guys were talking about this earlier, we kind of buttress the different and the ugly. And we look down on healthy unionships, healthy relationship, monogamous relationship even, which is shocking to me still. But so yes, I think culturally there is this is greatly due to the feminist movement, unfortunately, as well. There's a great anti-male sentiment.
Finally,
If
somebody
it makes
said
you happy, it can't be that
Makes
bad.
you happy. It can't be that bad. All right. Well, we got to wrap things up. This has been awesome. There's a million other things we could talk about, but we just don't have the time, unfortunately. We got to go. Daniela, you rock. Thank you very much. We'll look forward to seeing you back here on the show next week. Is there anything else that you want to share real quick or plug before we let you go?
I always plug my Twitter. Follow my Twitter at PensecDaniela. At PensecDaniela, at my last name, first name. I tweet a lot there. So thank you for having me, Austin. And I can't wait to be on next week. So
see you next week. All right. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
There. Let's give Daniela a round of applause, shall we? Well, she always does a great job. Super smart.
Yes, love her.
Yep, love having Daniela on the show. All right. Well, what was your favorite thing to talk about today?
Oh my God, I think Daniela's segment, honestly.
It's always so good. Good stuff. Fun. All right. Before you go, don't forget, click the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Click that follow button there so you can come back and join us. Tomorrow is Freedom Family Friday. My sweet redheaded libertarian wife, Steffi, who is kind of starting to suffer now.
Oh, yeah.
Hitting that almost 9 months pregnant. She will be here on set with us. But just a quick heads up for anybody who is a regular of the show. There might just be one day when there's where's Austin? I might not be here for a few days because the baby's coming sometime very soon. So just a heads up, that's going to happen. And anything related to that?
So tonight, I know you have some Jefferson City area viewers, right? So tonight, if you want to come out, I will be at Lakeside and Ashland for the presidential debate. Come out and see me. That's part of the reason why I'm wearing my shirt, because we're having a t-shirt contest.
Oh, nice. I'm trying to win with that one. That's a good one. Drew Van Runkle says, AP, can we get a live stream of the debate with your commentary? Yes, tomorrow morning. Compete with, I'm not trying to compete with Tim Cass and all these other guys and stuff that got to run all this stuff. I don't want to get embarrassed. I'd rather, because there's a lot of people who are not going to watch the debate tonight, and they're going to want to tune in tomorrow morning and find out what happens. So
let's be real, you also don't want to stay up that late.
I don't either. But tomorrow morning you get to watch all the clips, and you get our live stream. You get a commentary. You get to hear from me, Stephanie, my brother Justin for Freedom Family Friday. So we'll see you guys then. Bye, Camelia.
Have a great day, everyone.
See you guys. Love ya. Bye.
Expanse of time, a year might seem like a mere moment, but oh, what a year it's been. In September 2022, Austin and Stephanie Peterson embarked on a journey to wake up America. They began humbly, with just 20 souls tuning in, learning, listening, and though challenges arose, like the looming shadow of YouTube demonetization, their spirit never waned. And now, thanks to you, thousands rise with the sun to join them, to listen, to engage, to be a part of a community. So here's to you, and to wake up America, for memories shared, for friends made, for the journey ahead, and for never, ever forgetting to rise and freedom. Happy anniversary.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Is the outdoor of your home about as exciting as a library? Then spice it up and unbore your space with our custom metal signs. Crafted with love and a bit of libertarian magic, you can customize your own metal sign at ap4libertyshop.com. So head to ap4libertyshop.com, customize your own metal sign today.
Welcome to a world of vocal discovery at Peterson Voice Studio. I'm Justin Peterson, here to guide your musical journey. Envision a place where your voice reaches new heights, where every note tells a story. We embrace all singers, from the enthusiastic shower vocalists to aspiring stars, ensuring each voice finds its unique rhythm and tone. Are you ready to elevate your voice? Visit petersonvoicestudio.com and sign up for remote lessons tailored just for you. Let's begin this melodious journey together.
Tired of spending your hard-earned money on woke corporations that don't share your pro-freedom values? Fed up with sipping liberal lattes and progressive cappuccinos? Introducing Founding Flavors from AP for Liberty Shop. Get your day started with Washington's Revolutionary Roast. As robust and principled as the man himself, this blend is the shot of energy heard round the world. Or maybe you want to taste the fervor of freedom with Adams's Patriotic Perk. It's as dynamic and balanced as the U.S. Constitution, sure to awaken your spirit of liberty. For the aficionados, we've got the Jeffersonian Java, a complex mix of flavors that speaks volumes about your refined tastes. And don't forget Betsy's Liberty Lullaby, our decaf option, crafted with the same care and dedication Betsy Ross put into our Star-Spangled Banner. This blend lets you enjoy the taste of freedom anytime without losing sleep. No woke beans here, folks. Just pure, patriotic, pro-freedom flavors brewed with love for liberty. So why compromise your principles for a cup of coffee? Stand up for your values, perk up your patriotism, and start your day the American way. Get your Founding Flavors at apforlibertyshop.com.